Hi everyone, this is Rebecca Cummings with Rebecca Cummings Yoga and Somatic Coaching. I hope you're all doing well and just wanted to wish all of my fellow friends and colleagues out there who are celebrating the winter solstice, just a happy solstice and happy holidays to everyone. And I realized that the last time I made a video was right after finals, so I'm starting to realize what my rhythm is with making videos lately, which is that I start to get really inspired once my focus and my aim isn't as much on schoolwork and things like that. And I wanted to do a video today, and the topic is on what to do when we're feeling overwhelmed. But I'm open to this topic being fluid and changing as it needs to. So this came up. I mean, I think it's a very timely topic given the holidays and a lot of the hustle and bustle that goes on. And also thinking about the winter solstice and what that means for me, and being in a time when we're in the darkest days of the year and my own reflections on that. And how this topic came to mind was that, how do I want to say this? I had a decision I needed to make, and then it became overwhelmingly clear to me that if I took this route with this decision, there was going to be suffering and pain. If I took this route with this decision, it was going to be suffering and pain. And I started to feel so overwhelmed and also angry and confused, and I felt really sad. I started to cry, and I was thinking, well, it feels like a lot of times life is like that, where it really doesn't matter which choice you make, because either way there's going to be some kind of suffering and pain and loss. And I've been sitting with this question within myself, like, what is that about? And some of you know I'm a pretty big religious studies geek, and what I've been thinking about in terms of a lot of the myths and stories that I've heard either growing up, whether it's in Christianity or later in stories in Buddhism and Hinduism, is that oftentimes these characters are deeply immersed in some form of chaos and destruction and havoc. And you even see that in movies now, right? Like you see Wonder Woman, right? She's like gotta like push this thing up into the air, and you know, all these things are going on and all these things are spinning around them. And think about the Buddha's enlightenment story and the different Maras that came to him. And what a lot of these stories have in common is that the characters have to find a place, a center within themselves in order to make form out of the chaos. So this becomes really apparent in the words that a lot of these characters choose, right? So for example, with the Buddha story, you know, the night before his enlightenment, all of his shadow, all of his stuff, all of his darkness, everything's coming up, the desires, the angers, everything. And then he opens his eyes and puts his hand on the earth and makes the proclamation that all beings are awakened. Or the Moses story, the burning bush, and he has to go on this big adventure, and he comes down and he has the 10 commandments, and you know, these characters have to learn how to create form within the overwhelm, within the overwhelming experience. And this really speaks to me psychologically in my own experience and working with others, that we are in this constant dance between chaos and form. And so it can be really easy to get very caught up and, you know, just in terms of how our nervous systems have developed over literally billions of years. And who knows how many, you know, ancestral things we're taking on or picking up on, multi-generational patterns of reacting or not reacting, of fight, flight, or freeze. And so what I want to talk about today is how we work with this feeling of overwhelm in our physiology. So I may go off on a few tangents, just forewarning you. So, one of the ways that I see this experienced in my own life is that there is this image of who I want people to see me as. And I think that's particularly perpetuated in social media. You can kind of just cut and paste the things that you like about your life and put them on show and then say, like, this is who I am. Even though on the inside, you may be feeling incredibly lonely, depressed, anxious, you name it. So there's that. On some level, I think what can be helpful about that is that we get to put out kind of like almost make like our own vision board or collage of how our ideal life, and maybe even strive for that. But generally speaking, the shadow side of that is that we have this image, this ideal self, and then here sits this who we really are and what we really feel, and then this gap, the gap starts to widen and widen and widen until eventually who we really are and what we really feel no longer is in congruency with what we show on the outside. And this can create a lot of overwhelm and burnout. It can create depression, anxiety, all kinds of symptoms. So, I know I'm speaking about a lot of different things here, but this is really what's been alive for me. What to do when that gap starts to become so wide and we start to become overwhelmed. We didn't get enough gifts on the Christmas list. We didn't do enough laundry today. We're not doing enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. I'm not enough. But then on the outside, it's like, no, everything's fine. What's that saying when someone says they're fine? I'm fucked up, irrational, neurotic, and existential, something like that. So how to start to bring these two together, that ideal self and who we really are, it takes a real art and a real dance. And I do think it's really interrelated with this dance of chaos and form that a lot of the many myths that we grew up with and watch are also representing in our psychology. And also how that relates to our nervous system development and evolution as well. So I'm realizing the time of this video. So just a few tools and things I wanted to share with you on this subject is that we need to find a way to build a reparative relationship here. So that literally can happen through reparative relationships. So talking with people that you feel safe with, or finding a group or group counseling or a therapist, a spiritual teacher, a mentor, a guide, to begin to talk about that hidden self that's feeling really overwhelmed and frozen and anxious. But there's also reparative relationships that can happen from the inside. So for me, some of those reparative relationships are prayer. And sometimes, asking for help is one of the greatest prayers that I've ever said in my life and will continue to say throughout my life, is being willing to ask for help. Meditation is a reparative practice for me. Hiking and walking is a reparative practice for me. This is also called, in somatic experiencing, we talk about this as resourcing. So when there's a high level of overwhelm or anxiety, that it's important to learn how to do the things that help us to feel more like ourselves again. And, I also want to mention this. I've been stepping back from a lot of my, like my personal Facebook page and just focusing on my own goals and vision and stuff. But one of the reasons why I did that was because there's a lot of news, and that's kind of spread, and basically anything that's shared becomes the truth now. And I find that very concerning. And I was thinking about how when I was growing up, we had 1 hour. 1 hour is the 6 o'clock news that my parents would come home and they'd watch the news and, begrudgingly would make their comments and our snarky remarks, whatever. But now you can be inundated with news 24/7, just constant. Whenever you want, you just open your phone and the news can be right there on your home screen. So I think our evolution in terms of technology and social media has not yet caught up with our level of wisdom and our level of capacity to hold that in our nervous systems. So I do want to just say that, because there's many different external things coming at us that we have not evolutionarily evolved yet to be able to hold in capacity. And so just want to put that out there. Now, I wonder for you, so what are some of your reparative relationships? What inner resources within you, what outer resources such as, people, places, and things help you to feel most like yourself again? And if you're not sure what that is, to begin writing about this, to begin reflecting about this, to begin to strategize your life and your time so that we're not running on empty by the end of the day, right? And the last thing I'll just say on this subject is that I worked in hospice for a number of years, and I watched many people transition from life to death. And I just want to send out as a little call to action, or maybe, not a warning, just like call to action, that it's important to not wait till the end of our life to finally face that part of us that's really there. The part of us that is anxious and self-conscious and fearful and thinking about X, Y, and Z, or obsessing about this. Because no amount of external validation or no amount of external consumption is ever really going to fix what's going on the inside. What's going on physiologically, what's going on emotionally, spiritually. So I just want to say that because this is something that I saw come up a lot when I would watch people transition, is that all of these hidden or suppressed parts of themselves suddenly just came glaring. And then you would see other people transition who have had some kind of spiritual, emotional practice, mental health practice, whatever you want to call that. And the way that these people transitioned in death, they had a lot more peace, a lot more serenity, and there was a lot more just ease and acceptance. So I think, some people go into the extreme of there's only chaos, and then some people go to the extreme of there's only form and rigidity. So can we have an acceptance that both of these things exist? And once we have acceptance of chaos and form, both being a basic human experience, I mean, even the great myths that have lasted thousands of years tell us this, how do we align our lives so that when overwhelm comes up, we know what to do to resource, to take care of ourselves. We know how to find connection once again. So I hope you got some sense from this video today. I know I touched on various topics of things that are really alive for me right now. Feel free to please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Rebecca Cummings Yoga, or visit my website, www.takingcareyoga.com. And I've been spending much more time on Instagram lately, which is also Taking Care Yoga. So feel free to find me there as well. Until next time, dear ones, honoring just your path, your journey, and to the messiness of grace within each of us.